Hello guys, we're actually right outside the stadium now. That deafening noise you can hear behind me on that stage. I thought I was early. 3.5 hours before kickoff. I was late. Apparently it is Moscow football day, and around the Luzhniki, I mean, to get an idea, all that you can see behind me through the trees is an entire Olympic complex. Don't forget, of course, the 1980 Olympics were held here. And the number of pitches, I haven't counted, but at a very conservative estimate, I'd have to say there are at least 15 pitches, maybe more. And all age groups, right up until full adult ages, playing a 5-side tournament. They've got a massive stage there, blaring out music, and I mean, it's just not hundreds, but there are plenty, well, probably are hundreds of people already. You know, food stalls are already doing business, people are milling around. I don't think they're letting in spectators just yet, but I mean, there are plenty of people already. Alright, so just in case I haven't shown you guys before, we're going to make this an Englishman in Siberia episode 6, I believe it is. Luzhniki in Moscow. Here it is. Now this is the grand stadium itself. You can see from the design, all of those pillars, it's a very classic design. The outside has not really changed. Inside though it has. And the athletics track that was here, obviously, like for the aforementioned Olympics, that's gone. There is a sizable bit between the stands and the pitch, but it's a lot closer. And the seats are just brilliant. Like I mentioned before, the angle of the stands is fantastic, and the atmosphere is just going to be incredible today. So, yeah, I mean, a little about the area. We're just going to come and show you somebody you probably recognise, a very tall man at the moment anyway. But before we do, Luzhniki itself, the actual area of Moscow, Luzhniki, it translates roughly as marshland, and it's inside a bend of the Moskva River, and it's an enormous area, very well planned actually, because it's fairly well connected by transport. It's got a brand new metro system, only about 200 or 300 metres from where we're standing now, and of course it's got the emblematic river bending around it. Possibly tomorrow I may even I'll do a little part 2 of this, and I'll go across the river, up the hill to where the Moscow State University is. I swear to God, one of the most impressive buildings you will ever see in your life. And you walk about 20 minutes down the road from it, and there's a little balcony overlooking the city, and it looks down onto the Luzhniki itself. Well, there he is. You recognise that? Mr. Lenin himself. The Lenin Stadium, as it was known before it was renamed to Luzhniki. But his statue stands proud outside the main entrance, which is where we are now. So at the moment, well, let's have a look over your shoulder. This is 3.5 hours before kickoff, remember? And you know, they've got all the food and drink stalls. All of this has come up since yesterday. Got some merchandise over there. Nothing too much at the moment, but you can see all the way down this little plaza almost. Stands on either side, the red tables for people sitting down. And what can I say? I mean, this is going to be rammed today, and of all days, the weather is dreadful. It's twice I've come to Luzhniki now, and it's been, well, very St. Petersburgy in weather, very Manchester-like, drizzly, grey, uninspiring from the heavens, but it's going to be inspiring on the pitch today. Now, like I say, we've got Argentina here today. So what, I'll keep walking around, give you a bit more of an impression of the area. Argentina in town, of course. Yesterday I met up with a cameraman for La Sexta, the Spanish sports channel, Uruguayan chap studying here in Moscow, and a few of the press were Argentinian or Spanish speaking at the very least, because of course in 4 days' time in St. Petersburg there will be Russia against Spain, so a lot of the journalists will probably cross over. You know, the language of course will help, but so in terms of the interest, I actually don't know what the figures are, how many Argentinians live in Moscow. What I do know is for the Chile games in the Confederations Cup, there were very, very few. Now, whether they're going to be a larger Argentinian diaspora in the Russian capital, I can't say. But the fascination will be there to watch Messi and co. Sergio Aguero likely to start up front. So some big names coming into town. But this is okay. We're doing an Englishman in Moscow episode, I should say. So I'm giving you my thoughts personally rather than the sport. Sport I'll put on the Russian Football News channel and Football Grad coverage later. But I think these sort of monuments, and I class it as a monument, are so important. So look at the style. It's simple, but you know within an instant that this is the Luzhniki in Moscow. You wouldn't mistake it for the Olympic Stadium, well, Olympia Stadium, all variations of it around the world. You know this is Moscow. I just think symbols are important like that, and the Russians take care of them. Well, usually, if you watch my last episode of An Englishman in Siberia, where I showed you the first ever city banya to be built in Tyumen, my home city, that had been left to ruin. And in the same way that I'm proud as a resident of Russia of the Luzhniki Stadium, I was also very saddened by the decay, really, that the banya building in Tyumen had been left to fall into. I'll have to show you more people milling around. Look at this, it's going to be packed. But yeah, that's one thing the Russians do well. I mean, I was walking down the street to find my hostel last night, and I walked past one of the, I'm not very good with the names, I should know this, but one of the most emblematic buildings on Smolenskaya Street. Actually enormous road, about 4 or 5 lanes either way. And then there's Moscow State University that I mentioned. I'll show you that in part 2 of this episode. And it's the scale of things. You know, normally you think of America doing things in big scale, and Russia as a country, of course, is big. But just have a look at this. Just behind me, this is just one example. That building they're doing behind me, sorry, got it out of the way. That building there, still building there, is going to be yet another small sports arena. And the fact is, they use it. That's the thing. You look at the Olympics of previous years, or the World Cups of previous years, and the amount of venues that are just left into disrepair, simply because they weren't planned, in my view. They were built for the big show of whatever global event it was, and without a thought to how they would be used in the future. Athens is one of the worst examples in memory. If you think of the Athens Olympics in 2004, only about 5 years later, I think it was something like 37 out of the 40 venues, a very high percentage, had weeds growing into them, weren't used, there was graffiti there. And it's just a horrendous waste of money, a lack of foresight. And this is, on the positive side, in contrast, what I think is a massive positive about Russian construction and planning. These buildings, well, say the Luzhniki is obviously a very important one for the World Cup and sport, but they use it as well. It's not just built at 5-10 times a year. I just walked through a youth tournament with 20 pitches of all ages. That's what I want. That's what you want to see, isn't it? What's the point of building something as grand as this if it's not going to be used, or at least be the centrepiece of an area that is used? But Moscow's done it right. All the TV crews here, there already, of course. Now I'm just making my way round to the media entrance. So, guys, I'm going to make this a slightly shorter one, but like I say, this is only part 1. Part 2 will come later, and we'll go up to Moscow State University later. For now, there's not really much more to show you other than still more circulars from the outside of the ground. But just like I say, that will come later. Alright guys, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll be back for more match coverage on Russian Football News and Football Grad. But for Englishman in Siberia, that's all for now, and I will see you later and possibly tomorrow. Okay, bye bye.